as an investment, you want to have a kilo of gold or 10 kilos or 100 kilos of gold. But in a case of emergency, you want to have coins of 2 grams, 5 grams, 10 grams, to very small denomination. So you can go to shop and the girl behind the counter will accept these coins because she will not be able to access a credit card or cryptocurrencies, because in an emergency situation, our kind governments that look so well after the interest of their citizens, they'll switch off the light, switch off the electricity, and switch off the internet.
Marc Faber, the publisher of the Gloom and Boom report, is a world-renowned economist and analyst known for his blunt deliveries and shrewd, contrarian approach towards the markets. Faber's Doom, Gloom, and Boom report provides an in-depth analysis of global economics and finance, highlighting unusual opportunities for investors worldwide. Faber is also popular for his complete disdain for the woke empire and his relentlessness in exposing the empire's many follies. For years, Marc and other sound money advocates have been warning about the importance of getting out of the system and being self-reliant with the help of a community of people who share the same ideals. According to Marc, the situation has gone from mere warnings to one of utmost urgency. Marc believes everyone, especially people in the Western world, where there is so much silent government surveillance and control. Marc's guide to getting out of the system includes having adequate and safe shelter, preferably off the grid, your own source of food and water, and most importantly, adequate precious metals investments. Marc believes when the reset occurs, however form it may take, the government will first take away people's access to their bank deposits, stocks, bonds, and every other thing they can get their hands on. A similar event is detailed in a book by David Rogers Webb titled The Great Taking. In his introduction, Rogers Webb warns that we are on the verge of the great taking of all collateral, which will include all financial assets, all money on deposit at banks, all stocks and bonds, and all privately owned, personal or otherwise, property financed with debt. According to Rogers Webb, if this great taking is even partially successful, it will be the greatest conquest and subjugation in world history. During a recent interview at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, Marc talked about the current state of the U.S. economy, the impact of inflation on the rich and the poor, and the importance of being able to survive outside the system with adequate gold and silver holdings to help you survive through whatever is coming. We will now bring you clips from the video. Please watch, like, and share this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
You can be concerned about just everything, but I was just reading a Bloomberg column, and there is an economist, and he predicts that in a year's time, the 10 years Treasury yield will decline to below 2.5%. And then I looked further into the matter, and I saw a Bank of America survey of portfolio managers, fund managers. 70% of them expect lower interest rates in the next 12 months, which is a very high level of bullish consensus about interest rates coming down. Now, the question is this: if they are right, what kind of conditions does that bring about in financial markets and in the economy? I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible that interest rates drop sharply, but under what conditions would that happen? Obviously, it would have to be a weak economy globally with very low credit demand and with inflation coming down meaningfully. And then we have to ask ourselves, how realistic is that? Because recent wage settlements with the automobile manufacturers were like for 10% increase annually. And there is pressure on wages everywhere in the world and still pressure on prices. And secondly, we have to ask ourselves, what about if interest rates don't go down and everybody's wrong and the interest rates just keep on going up? And that is a concern investors should have about their positions in stocks and in bonds, because stocks have been rallying strongly over the last 2-3 weeks. And if interest rates do not go down, but happen to go up, and we don't know for sure which direction they will go, then obviously the valuations may be on the high side. So this would be my concern. And secondly, even if interest rates drop to around 2.5% on the 10-year Treasury, what happens thereafter? Because in the 70s, we had 3 instances of interest rates declining by about 50%, but thereafter they went up again to new highs, and the final high was in 1981 in September, with the 10 years over 15%. So this would be one of the kind of economic concerns I would be preoccupied with. Well, I agree that inflation is not caused only by money and by the increase in the quantity of money, but mostly it is actually caused by an increase in the quantity of money by the money supply. And we have to be very careful when we talk about inflation, because when the prices of potatoes and of strawberries and of, at the supermarkets go up, it's a consumer price inflation. But we also have asset inflation. Say when the prices of homes go up, and they go up far more than the salaries and the wages of people, then at some point there is an affordability issue. And the affordability for homes among young people and among, let's say, people of not the 10% richest and highest earnings American is severely diminished at the present time.
During the interview, Marc compares his time as a young man, just joining the labor force, and the opportunities that were open to him then to what's happening in the labor force today. He explains that when he joined the labor force in 1970, his salary as a young worker for White Weld & Co. was relatively high compared to home prices and the value of assets like the Dow Jones. Now, about 50 years later, the salary of a young worker is not near enough for them to afford the kind of houses Marc would have been able to buy on his salary. Even those who invest earn way less interest on their bonds. This is why younger generations work 2 or more jobs and still fail to meet standards that someone like Marc could easily meet in the 70s. Let's get back to the interview, as Marc speaks more about inflation, surviving outside the system, and global organizations that seem harmful but are created only to satisfy the greed of the global elites.
Inflation is a tax. Inflation occurs in countries that have fiscal deficits. Normally in a country that wouldn't have a fiscal deficit, you would have, even with money printing, probably not much inflation. But in countries that have a large fiscal deficit, you have inflation. And the reason why countries have fiscal deficits is that ordinary people don't know that inflation is actually a tax on them. And it is a welcome tax by the rich people, by the affluent class, because it hurts, as you just mentioned, the lower income recipients and the middle class the most. And that's why in countries where you live, and also in Thailand, say, when there is inflation, the wealthy people are not suffering. I mean, Bill Gates and Elon Musk and so forth, and Jeff Bezos, they actually benefit from inflation. Because during inflationary times, you have, in real terms, a negative real interest rates. And so stocks continue to go up. Like in the 70s, stocks didn't crash. What crashed was eventually the US dollar. But when the dollar collapses, and I would expect the dollar to go down if, say, we went down on the 10 years back to around 2.5% yield. When the dollar goes down, the rich people don't suffer as much because they have the ability to shift money into other currencies or into precious metals and so forth. But Poor people don't have that opportunity and they wouldn't know how to do it. So again, it's the middle class and the lower classes that get hurt the most. I happen to think, and as you earlier pointed out, that we have two worlds, the BRICS countries and the Western industrialized nations. I believe that the BRICS countries, and I would include the BRICS countries, the poor countries in the world, the developing world, that would make up for close to 90% of the global population, including India, China, Indonesia, Pakistan, Brazil, and so forth. These countries, in my view, they don't believe in the UN because they think the UN is an American-controlled institution. They don't believe in the IMF. They don't believe in the World Bank. And they are not great believer in the WHO. So this agreement of WHO to control sort of the world out of Washington, I think will fail. And you take a country like Thailand, one of the princesses, I mean, the daughter of the present king, got sick after taking the vaccine. So I don't think that they will implement, say, these measures in a country like Thailand. And in India, they had bad experiences with all sorts of vaccines that were offered by the Bill Gates Foundation. So, and this ditto for Africa and South Africa. So I think that there are big question marks about WHO. And even among intellectuals, a lot of intellectuals reject the tyrannical nature of WHO.
Marc believes a return to the gold standard, which will promptly take important monetary decisions away from the hands of inefficient people, will be great for the world. But it will not be allowed to happen. However, the powers that be cannot stop the growing de-dollarization trend and how much it will impact the US dollar in the coming years. As a result, Faber recommends that everyone invests outside the United States and the other provinces of the woke empire. While it might be difficult to do that, the renowned economist says it is really important to avoid someday being left with a lot of worthless dollars. He believes Asia, South America, and Latin America are all great alternatives for investors looking to escape the coming dollar collapse. Please share your thoughts, comments, and observations in the comments section below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos on gold, silver, and the US economy. Thanks for watching.